What is going on? How is everybody doing today? It's Maddie here from Chill TCG. Today we're going to be looking at the top 16 decks from the Chill Series number 7 that wrapped up this past Wednesday. We're going to take a look at all of these different decks, just talk about it a little bit, and then sort of get ready and sort of prepare for the meta that will be coming in Chill Series number 8. I hope you enjoy the video. I hope you enjoy the deck lists, so let's get right into it. Are you looking for great deals on PTCGO codes? Check out our sponsor, Guardian Gaming TCGs. Use our promo code CHILLTCG for 10% off your entire order. Head on over to guardiangamingtcgs.com. Let's start off by taking a look at the 16th placed deck list here, ran by Fernando Cifuentes, our former Chill Series champion, running that classic Breaksard, Greens Breaksard deck list that he was running in Chill Series number 5, I believe, the one that he used to win that tournament. A few different inclusions to this deck that we saw that's different than the list that we did the separate video on just about a week ago. Fernando here, this deck list, of course, was based around that crazy good combo between Lieutenant Surge, Jesse James, Chip, and the reset stamp there. That combo can be really, really deadly for comebacks. Of course, with the breaks into Charizard attack, being able to search your deck for 3 cards really guarantees that if you get that attack off, you'll be able to do this combo at some point in the game. A few things just looking at the list that I see is a little bit different. He is running 1 Stealthy Hood, which is a new inclusion, I believe, into this deck list. And I think a Mallow and Lana is also new in this list, but I could be wrong. Pretty much the same list, practically the same list that he was running a few tournaments ago. Nice to see him place top 16 again, so congrats to Fernando. This is a really cool list. I highly suggest that you guys go and try this one out. Moving on to number 15, we have Henrique George? I don't know how to say that name, and I'm real sorry, but he is running a Poison Eternatus deck list, very similar to the deck list that we saw win Chill Series number 6 with Kanan Mellard. The Poison Eternatus list is one of my favorites in the game right now. I'm not a big fan of Eternatus, but the Poison deck list, to me, is just really cool. With that Galarian Slowbro V, being able to, use the ability to, pretty much on command, poison your opponent's active Pokemon, paired up with those Toxicroaks, which can increase the damage counters placed. With that poison, you can get some pretty big damage off in one turn. We have plenty of switching options in this deck. We have the 3 Dark Cities, 4 switches, 2 Hiding Energies. You should always be able to go into that Galarian Slowbro V and then retreat back out, at any point during this game in one turn. If you get 2 Toxicroaks on the board, that's 50 poison damage, after the turn ends. And then if you have that full board with Eternatus VMAX, 270 plus 50, that is 300 damage. And that's only if you have 2 Toxicroaks on the board. You might have even more than that. But that 320 is kind of a sweet spot right now, being able to one-shot, send a Scorch, and pretty much most things right now in the format. Very powerful deck. A deck that we saw win our last tournament, so, a list that I definitely highly suggest that you guys go and try out. In terms of, other things here, with Eternatus that are a little bit different, he's running 4 Boss's Orders, which is definitely really cool, but of course, with this deck, that's focused around doing big damage in one turn, you want Boss's Orders to be able to guarantee that one-hit KO on some of those VMAXs that might be on your opponent's bench. Pokemon Search, though, if we look at that, we've got 4 Great Balls, 4 Quick Balls, 3 Pokecom, pretty standard. But again, in this deck, you're going to want to be looking for a lot of evolution Pokemon between the Eternatus VMAXs and the Toxicroak, 6 in total. So the 4 Great Balls and 3 Pokecom definitely help with that. Looking at the energy count, he's running 10 energies. Of course, you're going to be manually attaching, if you're not power accelerating with Eternatus V. But 6 normal energies, 2 capture, 2 hiding energy. A pretty good standard deck list here. And a consistent one at that with 4 Crobats, 4 Research, and 3 Marnies as well. Everything, that you need in this deck is here. And I highly suggest that you go play this one. It can be extremely powerful, no matter what matchup that you're playing against. Moving on to number 14, we have Jonathan Patricio. He's going to be running a Decidueye Goons deck list here. Pretty cool. Not too much, difference here. We did see one of these, spoiler alert, that we saw one of these, I think, in top 4. Very cool, but Jonathan's list here, nothing too out of the ordinary. He's got the Rosas, he's got the Jirachis, the 4-1-3 of the Decidueye lineup, and the 2-2 of the Zigzagoons. Of course, he's got 4 rare candies. Some other inclusions that we do see, a Mew and a Fion. Fion is, of course, going to be really good to get your opponent back into that Pokemon that they cannot attack with, kind of forcing them, right, to be always, be in that locked state, with the immunities that you have in this deck. The Mew, of course, I think is really good right now with Pikarom being so rampant right now in the format. You don't want Pikarom to knock out two of your stage 2 Pokemon in one turn. That could be really detrimental to you. So Mew, of course, very good inclusion into this deck. Some other things that might be a little bit different that you might not see in other decks. We only see one Boss's Orders in this deck, and we see 2 Stealthy Hoods. We are not seeing the big Parasol in this deck. We see Stealthy Hood. Of course, it's sort of they're similar cards, but some people I think prefer to run Stealthy Hood over Big Parasol. It's up to you guys, whatever you think is the better card to include. One thing to note here, we're running 4 Grass and 2 Dark, but we're running 4 Capture Energy, so definitely going to be making sure that we can get those basics on the board when we need them. This deck is full of basic Pokemon, so very important to have those in the deck. 4 Scoop Up Nets, also very interesting. But of course, very useful with the Zigzagoons and the Jirachis, so it makes sense in this deck. 4 Quick Balls and 3 Pokecom on top of the Capture Energy. Plenty of Pokemon Search and everything that you should need to get this deck running. The 4 Research, 2 Marnies on top of the 4 Roses definitely brings this deck a lot of consistency. No Reset Stamp or anything like that, and only 2 Switch cards, so definitely a cool deck list here. Definitely go try it out. Big shout out to Jonathan Patricio for playing in the tournament and making top 16 here with this Decidueye Goons deck list. At number 13, we have Mad Party. Very cool here. I'm not, I'm not very knowledgeable when it comes to Mad Party here. Looks pretty standard, but we do see 3 Dedennes on top of 1 Crobat and 1 Eldegoss V and a Mew. That might be a little bit out of the ordinary. I'm not sure. I don't really play Mad Party. And then 1 Oranguru as well. He is actually running 3 Electromagnetic Radars, which is pretty interesting. Makes sense, right? You're going to want to be finding those Dedennes as often as you can. Discarding cards is very important in this deck. That's that much I do know. So, consistently being able to grab those Dedennes, definitely really important. We see 4 Twin Energies and then 4 Triple Acceleration Energies. No basic energies, not really needed in this deck specifically. You're going to be needing to attach, I think, at least 2 to attack most turns with this deck. And then you're probably going to be just attacking with the Bunnelby. If everything goes right, I suppose you can attack with the other ones, but from what I know, the Bunnelby card is the primary attacker in this deck. All the other cards, I think you want to focus on discarding. We see 3 Boss's Orders and 2 Great Catchers. Plenty of Gusting in this deck, to give it a little bit more consistency. And then for Pokemon Search, we have 4 Great Balls, 4 Quick Balls, and 3 Evolution Incense. Not Pokecom Evolution Incense. Makes sense because, you're often discarding Pokemon in this deck. You probably don't have a lot of times the Pokemon in hand to swap out with a different Pokemon that you would do with, Pokemon Communications. So Evolution Incense seems to make a whole lot of sense. 2 Air Balloon, pretty much gives all your Pokemon in this deck free retreat. So it definitely makes a lot of sense to be running that as well. All in all, a really cool deck list, so shout out to Brian. We don't see a lot of Mad Parties placing well at Chill Series tournaments, so definitely really cool to see this deck at the number 13 spot. Moving on, Cole Lewis at number 12. He's running the Moist Mewtwo deck list. A deck list that I personally haven't played a whole lot, but I believe that this is pretty standard as far as these deck lists go. He's got the 3-3 lineup, Sanam Frostmoth, 3 Dedenne, 3 Mew 3s. He's got 2 Blastoise GXs on top of the Blastoise and Piplup Tag Team GX, so very interesting there. Probably to give this deck a little bit more consistency. I think that Blastoise GX is really important to get into the discard pile. He is running a Keldeo GX and a Starmie GX as well. That Keldeo GX has a nice immunity, I believe, against other GX Pokemon. I think that's the ability. I'm not sure exactly. And I'm not actually 100% sure what that Starmie GX does, but I'm sure it has some, attacking use or maybe a setup use. I'm not sure exactly, but this is a very cool deck list. People are now running Rillaboom Mew 3, but Frostmoth Engine Mew 3, Moist Mew 3, as some people like to call it. It's definitely a really cool deck list. Not much I can really say about this one here. Congrats to Cole for making number 12. Deck list that I personally like the look of a whole lot, and one that I would like to play here in the future, but I just, I haven't gotten around to collecting the cards for it. 1 Air Balloon, 2 Viridians, 11 Wander Energy, 4 Capacious Bucket, in a pretty standard supporter lineup. I think definitely makes a whole lot of sense. I think this deck list is about as consistent as it possibly can be, so shout out to Cole Lewis for running this deck. Moving on, though. At number 11th, we've got Ricardo Celebroni, rocking that filthy ADP list. This is, I think, probably the more ideal lineup for ADP. I think a deck list that most people would be running. This is primarily what it would look like in my eyes. He's got the 3 Zacian, 2 ADP, 2 Dedenne, I guess some people run 3 Dedennes, but he's running 2 Dedenne, 1 Crobat, 1 Eldegoss, Small and a Milotic V. That Milotic V, of course, really good against the Senate Scorch matchup, although some people aren't running Milotic in their deck. He's got 4 Research and 4 Boss on top of 4 Hammers, 4 Energy Switch, 4 Saucer. A lot of stuff that you really see in this deck. One thing to note, though, he's not running Viridians, but he is running Chaotic Swell. But on that same note, he's running 3 Water Energies and 8 Metal instead of just sort of like a 2 Water Energy lineup. So that's interesting to note. No Big Charm to slap onto that ADP. I suppose, being able to get that free retreat out with most of your Pokemon is a bit more valuable than a Big Charm that you really would only be putting on the ADP. So it makes sense there. 4 Quick Balls, 3 Cherish Balls. With the Dedennes, the ADPs, and the Mawile GX, I think the higher count of Cherish Balls makes a lot of sense. Only 3 Switch cards, but of course you are running 2 Air Balloons, so that makes sense as well. 3 Spinners, which, of course also kind of makes sense because he's not running Viridians. He wants to run a higher count of Energy Search with Spinner to kind of guarantee him that ability to grab those Water Energies if he needs them. And 1 Great Catcher, yeah, so a really interesting list here, one that I probably, if I were to run ADP, would look very similar to this personally. I like this list a lot. Shout out to Ricardo for making 11th in the Chill Series number 7 tournament with ADP. At number 10, we have another ADP, Lucas Paglia. This ADP list is very similar. I guess we can go back and forth to look at the differences here. So he's running 3 Dedenne instead of 2. He's got everything else pretty much the same, except he is running 1 Mew on top of all the other Pokemon in the deck. He's got a 4-4 lineup, Boss's Orders, and Professor's Research. No Marnie, like Ricardo was running. He's got the 4-4-4-4 lineup of Saucer, Hammer, Quick Ball, and Energy Switch. 3 Charge Balls as well. 3 Switch Cards as well. He's running 2 Spinners instead of 3. No Stadiums in this deck, which is also very interesting, and he is running a Tool Scrapper. Other than that, they're very similar lists. This one, I believe, is probably a bit more focused on, covering different matchups between the Tool Scrapper and the Mew. Being placed into this deck. I think, the difference between placing 10th and placing 11th is really, really minuscule, right? There's not a whole lot of difference. It probably just comes down to resistance, I believe. So, 2 very similar lists. It's kind of hard to say which one is inherently better. So I won't get into that. But Lucas, man, congratulations. I like your ADP list a lot. It's a little bit different than what I would play, but I believe that playing Mew right now in your ADP list is still probably really good with all those Pikaroms just all over the place still. So, shout out to you, my man. I'm going to move that down a little bit. There we go. Okay. That was irritating me. Okay. Moving on, though. At number 9. Oh, okay. At the number 9 spot, we have Marco Cifuentes. Again, our previous Chill Series champion. I believe he was our Chill Series number 3 champion. At the time, he won playing that Welder Box deck list, but today he's running Dragapult VMAX, Energy Denial Dragapult VMAX, with that Magneton, the 3-2 lineup, and the 4-3 lineup of Dragapult. Very interesting deck list. Super cool to make this, or to see this in top 16, just outside the bubble for making top 8. I wish I could have seen him make it into bracket, but, better luck to him going into Chill Series number 8 this coming Wednesday. But this deck list is super cool. So, again, he's got the Surge, Jesse James, kind of combination there with the Team Yellgrunt, Boss's Orders. He's running Kabu in this deck, which is actually very interesting. But, Marco, I guarantee he knows what he's doing. 4 Hammers on top of the 2 Energy Grunts. So definitely a lot of focus around the Energy Denial in this deck list. 2 Stamps and a Tool Scrapper, 2 Power Plants, and 1 Chaotic Swirl as well. So definitely a very disruptive deck list, I would say. Dragapult VMAX, of course, with all those Eternatus VMAXs running around in the format right now, Dragapult probably has a much more difficult time doing well in this current format right now in the meta. But if you're building a list that's focused around Energy Denial, which has it's very effective against Eternatus VMAX, I'm sure this list is able to win plenty of games against Eternatus VMAX, even with the weakness. So big shout out to Marco here. He's not running any other Pokemon between the Dragapult lineup and the Magneton lineups, which is very cool. But take a good look at this deck list. Maybe pause the video, write this one down in your notes. This is a very cool deck list. I highly suggest that you guys go and try it out. I know there's been a few people in our tournaments that are still playing Dragapult. I think we had 3 or 4 last tournament playing Energy Denial Dragapult. So it's definitely a very viable deck list. And it's cool to see how, Dragapult has evolved since the inclusion of Darkness Ablaze in our standard format. But I'm glad to see that it still, has some sort of success right now and at our tournaments. But yeah, I mean, I don't know really what else to say about this deck. It's definitely one that I want to go and try out. Seems a whole lot of fun to play. And I bet if you get all 4 of those hammers off early in the game, if you get all heads, I bet your opponent is just going to be super upset. So definitely a really powerful deck in terms of energy denial. And I think those Team Yellow Grunts are probably really clutch with those Lieutenant Surge supporters as well. So shout out to Marco, former champion again. Congrats on making 9th place, man. Moving on, let's get into our top 8. These are all decks that made it into the top cut bracket at Chill Series number 7. At the number 8 spot, we have Angel Aranibar. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name, my man, but he's running Pikarom. This is sort of like a Pikarom box deck list, as you can see. There's a lot of different cards in this deck. He's got 2 Dedennes, 2 Pikarom, 1 Crobat, 1 Eldegoss, 1 Boltund, 1 2/2 Tag Team, 1 Tapu Koko Prism, 1 Tapu Koko V, and then 1 Vikavolt V. So there's a card in here for pretty much every use that you could think of. But of course, you are focused around energy denial between the 4 Crushing Hammers and the 1 Yell Grunt. Other supporters, he's got the 4/4 lineup, Marnie and Research on top of 3 Boss's Orders with the with the Crobat and the Dedenne and the Dedennes. This is definitely a very consistent deck list in terms of draw support. 4 Quick Ball, 4 Switches, 3 Electromagnetic Radars, 3 Energy Switch. Everything else in this deck seems pretty consistent with all the other Pikarom lists that you might see. 2 Stamps, 2 Big Charms, and 1 Air Balloon. Of course, Big Charm is going to get your Pikarom right at a range of those ADPs. Those Zacians, even after the ADP boost, with the resistance in Big Charm, you're pretty much safe, from getting one-hit KO'd. So very, very important to note. This matchup, of course, I think Pikarom has a good matchup against ADP in general, ADP Zacian. Of course, it bodies like most other water decks, of course. But with the energy denial, I think it's got a really good matchup against Eternatus as well. I think the only deck that the only matchup that this deck might struggle with is against like the Centiskorch or Blacephalon matchup. And we've seen those 2 decks have a lot of success in our tournaments as well. So I think that might be a big reason why Centiskorch is being, is becoming a really, really good deck right now in the format, is because it does really well with energy denial. So shout out to Angel here for making top 8 cut with this Pikarom list. It's absolutely phenomenal. We see Pikarom just pop up all over the place still. It's just, it doesn't seem to go away, and I think that this energy denial version of Pikarom is definitely a nasty one. So shout out to Angel, man. I don't know if that's how you say your name, Angel. I don't know, man. I apologize if I say your name wrong, but shout out to you, bro. Congrats on making top 8. Next up, though, this is our top 8 Decidueye. So Leibui here, or Leibui. I don't know how to say that name either, man. You guys have hard names to pronounce, so I apologize. Very similar to the last list we saw. In fact, it might be exactly the same, barring the difference between Big Parasol and Stealthy Hood. Again, like I said, it just really depends on what you prefer to run. I know that the decks running Big Parasol seem to have a little bit more consistency in terms of their placements, but that's just because it's been more popular over the last few weeks. People running Decidueye Goons just tend to run Big Parasol instead of Stealthy Hood. But like we saw, this is primarily, I think, pretty much the exact same deck list, except this one isn't running a Fion. It's just running the Mew. And I think it might be running one more like Marnie than the last deck list was. Other than that, it's like pretty much the exact same deck, almost the exact same supporter, item, energy, and Pokemon count. So, I think that there's a pretty like set in stone way of people, that people use to run Decidueye Goons, right? There's not a whole lot of variance in this deck. There's not a whole lot of room for like other sort of, tech cards to be put in here. So I think that this is pretty much the exact standard list. If you were going to build a Decidueye Goons list, I suggest that you build this one right here. Not to say that Fion isn't a good card to put in this deck, but I think that primarily, as a base, as sort of like a skeleton, this would be a really good deck to look at. So shout out to Lee here, or Lei, for making top 8 with this Decidueye Goons. Moving on, our third top 8 placement here. James Neria, running an Eternatus list that's not poison this time. It's just sort of like a random, well, I guess it's not random, but it just has a lot of different, a few different inclusions in terms of Pokemon into this list. So instead of like poison or just running like 4 Zigzagoons and 4 Hoopas or whatever, he's running just 2 Zigzagoons, 1 Hoopa, 1 Sableye, 1 Spiritomb, and 1 Yveltal. So a very wide variety of different Pokemon in this deck. And he's running the 4/4 lineup of Eternatus with 4 Crobat as well. That seems to be pretty standard. But Other things to look at in this deck, he's running 4 Crushing Hammers, so this is a Hammers variant of Eternatus VMAX. Very interesting to see, but of course, Hammers is just so good right now in the format. It's so good against other Eternatuses. It's good against ADP. It's good against pretty much everything. There's not a lot of decks that can really handle getting hammered 3 or 4 times in one game, so this definitely seems to be a really cool version of Eternatus here. On to supporters, so he's got the 3-3-3 lineup, Boss's Orders, Marnies, and Research. I like when that happens. He's got the 4 Quick Balls, 4 Great Balls, only 2 Pokecom in this deck instead of 3, and he's running 4 Switches, 2 Poke Gears, and 1 Tool Scrapper. That's something you don't often see in Eternatus. And he's running 2 Chaotic Swells as well, on top of 10 Energies. That's pretty consistent. We see that pretty often. Very cool deck list here. It seems that Hammers Eternatus is just, again, one of the best decks right now in the format. You can put Hammers into pretty much any deck right now, any archetype right now in the standard format, and it's probably going to be pretty darn good. So shout out to James for kind of understanding that, putting Hammers in Eternatus and making top 8 at the Chill Series number 7. Let's move on, though. Our last top 8 placement here was David Lugo running Eternatus VMAX. Super interesting here. He's only running 16 different cards in this deck. That's not something that you see very often, but pretty much just another version of Eternatus. This time focusing around Turbo Patch, which is something that you don't see every day. But between 4 Turbo Patch and 4 Power Plant, on top of just a bunch of other 4-4 lineups, we've got the 4-4 Eternatus VMAX, 4 Crobats, 3 Spiritomb, 2 Zigzagoons, and he's got 4 Research, 4 Marnies, and 3 Boss's Orders. So, just super consistent, right? There's only 16 different cards that you can pull in this deck. Pretty much every card that you're running is you almost have 4 of every individual card that you're running in this deck, which is very interesting. Could be kind of scary though. Like your hand might start with 4 Great Balls or 4 Research or something like that, which kind of scares me a little bit when you're running a deck like this. But I suppose in theory it's going to give you more consistency. He's got 4 Quick Balls, 4 Great Balls, 2 Pokecom. He's got 4 Turbo Patch and 4 Switch and 1 Tool Scrapper, 4 Power Plant. One interesting thing to note though, there's not a whole lot of way to discard cards between Research and Quick Ball. So I guess, there is some ways to discard cards, but you only have 9 energy, right? So you got to be pretty careful about discarding that energy before you use Turbo Patch. So I suppose that Turbo Patch is probably there for the most part after one of your Eternatuses get knocked out. You're able to just Turbo Patch onto an Eternatus V a couple times, get those energy on in one turn, and then evolve up and just instantly start attacking after you've been knocked out. So, probably has a really snappy comeback potential, really quick comeback potential here with this list. Super interesting, though. You don't really see it a lot, so shout out to David for running this list. Let's move on, though. So at our first top 4 spot, we have Liam Kid rocking that Centiskorch VMAX list. This is a very cool Centiskorch VMAX. It's got a whole wide variety of Pokemon, kind of like a Centiskorch box list. I feel like I've said that a bunch of times, but look at all these different Pokemon. He's got the 3-3 lineup of Centiskorch. He's got 3 Volcanion, 2 Dedenne, 2 Jirachi, 1 Cramorant V, 1 Crobat V, 1 Zigzagoon, 1 Heatran, and 1 Eldegoss V, on top of a Giratina as well. So a little bit of energy denial. I believe that's probably to get a better matchup against Luke Metal if it gets those weakness guard energies attached. Can be really pesky, when you're playing against a Luke Metal as Centiskorch VMAX if they have that weakness guard energy attached. So Giratina, I think, definitely helps with that for sure. That Cramorant gives you the ability to snipe Pokemon on the bench. Zigzagoon, with Scoop Up Nets, gives you, the ability to kind of cheese out some math there. Sorry about that. Later in the game, because Cramorant's only doing 160, so if you get to Zigzagoon down and scoop him up, ping 2 onto a benched Crobat, then you can then knock that one out with Cramorant. So, very interesting there. 1 Heatran, so, of course, the potential to get big hit KOs, 1-hit KOs with that GX attack. So very good as well. 1 Eldegoss makes a lot of sense between the Welders and Boss's Orders. You're only running, those are only 6 supporters that you're definitely going to want to be using throughout the game. So Eldegoss makes a whole lot of sense. Other than that, pretty standard. He's got 12 energies, 3 Giant Hearts, only 1 Fire Crystal, which scares me a little bit with this list. But, the 2 Reset Stamp definitely could probably be really clutch later in the game. We see a lot of variants with Centiskorch VMAX in this deck. A whole lot of different cards that he's running. Interesting to see that this deck made top 4 to me from the naked eye. It seems like it could be a little bit inconsistent, but Liam Kidd, of course, proved me wrong. Got a nice top 4 placement, so shout out to him. This Centiskorch VMAX list is very, very cool, so I definitely suggest that you go and try and play it. Moving on, though, to our second top 4 list, we have Vitor Lugan, or Vitor Lugan. I don't know how to say your name, right, man? You people just have really hard names to pronounce. I mean, I do too, so I can't really judge. But this is our top placing ADP here in the tournament, making top 4. He's got the 3 Dedenne, 3 Zacians, 2 ADP. He's got an Oran Guru in this deck. Instead of the Eldegoss, he's got 1 Crobat V, 1 Mawile GX. So very cool to see that he's not running an Eldegoss. He's not running Milotic, but he still made top 4. So I think that this deck is just mainly focused around fast pace, setting up with that GX attack, and then, being able to consistently gust. As we see here, he's got the 4 Boss's Orders and 4 Pokemon Catchers. I've been saying that Pokemon Catchers ADP Catchers is my favorite ADP variant. Everyone's running Hammers, or everyone's running like ADP Box or whatever it might be. I think Catchers is the most consistent deck list here. And you really don't have to worry. I mean, Centiskorch VMAX is, of course, going to be a hard matchup either way, but you don't really have to worry about running tech attackers if you're just going to be gusting into other Pokemon on their bench anyway. And all you really need to do is attack like 2 Dedennes or like a Crobat or 2 on their benches, and you're good. This deck list seems to be really good against Eternatus VMAX specifically. You should be able to, with this deck list, between the 4 Energy Switch, 2 Spinners, 4 Metal Saucers, 2 Viridians, you should be able to get that turn 1 or turn 2 GX attack off as consistently as possible. And then after that, you just set up those Zacians, and then you can kind of pretty much guarantee that you'll be able to gust your opponent's bench Pokemon pretty much every turn here, or at least get a chance to every turn. So this deck is all about fast-paced consistency. I like it a lot. He's got 4 Cherish Balls, 4 Quick Balls, 4 Switch Cards, 2 Air Balloons, so, a lot of switching options in this deck as well. 4 Research, makes a lot of sense. He's got the 9-2 lineup of Metal Energy and Water Energy instead of 8-3 that we saw in our previous decks. So definitely a really cool deck list and ADP list that I personally, really like. And I think, to me personally, this is the best way to play ADP Zacian, but of course, everyone's going to have their own opinions. Either way, shout out to Vitor Lugan for making top 4 with this ADP list. Moving on, though, we have Jack Moore. All right, this is actually, our second placing deck in the tournament, made it all the way to Grand Finals with this Blacephalon deck list. This is the only Blacephalon that we saw in top 16, and it just happened to make Grand Finals. Blacephalon, just a really nasty list, man. A deck that's just going to be really good until all these cards rotate out. No matter what you say about Blacephalon, it's got a lot of potential, and it's one of the better decks right now in the format. He's running the 4 Blacephalon, 4 Jirachis, and he is running 1 Cramorant, 1 Dedenne, 1 Zacian, 1 Mewtwo, and 1 Oricorio GX. So definitely a lot of potential. Between the, the Oricorio that you can pop off every turn after you get knocked out, and the Mewtwo, you should be able to get those Welders back whenever you need them. 4 Welders is the only supporter that he's running in this deck, on top of 4 Quick Balls, 4 Fire Crystals, 4 Scoop Up Nets, 4 Switches, 3 Spinners, 2 Retrieval, 2 Great Balls, and 4 Hearth, on top of 16 Energy. So this deck is just absolutely wild if you think about it, compared to all the other decks right now in the format. Blacephalon definitely has a much different game plan than everything else right now in the standard format. So definitely really cool. This is a deck list that I think makes a whole lot of sense if I was going to be playing Blacephalon right now in this format. This is practically what I would be playing. The 4 Fire Crystal seems a little bit much, but at the same time, you need this deck to be able to roll into the late game, and I think Fire Crystal really allows it to do that. Cramorant V, of course, there to get those pretty cheap, late game knockouts by sniping those Pokemon on the bench or just finishing KOs in general. Very cool deck list here. One that I probably, would say is still like a top 5, top 4 maybe deck right now in the format. People are playing Blacephalon less and less, but it seems to just still be placing really well. So shout out to Jack Moore for making Grand Finals with this deck list. Now, here's the thing, guys. I will not be showing the number 1 deck in this video. I actually made a completely separate video, on the championship winning deck list. Spoiler though, it was Centiskorch VMAX. I'll put a link to it in the description below, and I'll also put a tag right here in the video so you guys can go check that out if you are interested. I typically make entire videos dedicated to the deck lists that win our tournaments, so I didn't feel like including it in this video was entirely necessary. But if you are interested in which deck won the Chill Series number 7 tournament, definitely go check it out. That's going to be it, though, guys. That is our top 16 deck lists, or I guess I should say the top 15 deck lists. But don't be mad at me. I just, I didn't want to talk about a deck that I've already talked about. But, that's going to do it, guys. We're approaching 30 minutes in this video. That went by super fast. So definitely go check out, our Discord page where we organize all our tournaments and do a whole bunch of other different stuff in the community. Definitely go check out our Chill Series tournaments. Chill Series number 8 is coming up, this Wednesday. It is our 8th installment. We only have 2 more events after this until our invitational this season. The Chill Series, it's definitely a really great tournament. Go check it out. Everyone has a whole lot of fun. I have a whole lot of fun, and it provides everybody with a lot of entertainment. And our prize support is definitely really fantastic. So go check out the Discord, go check out the Twitter, and check out the Chill Series number 8 tournament coming up this Wednesday. But that's going to wrap it up, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we will see you guys very soon.